If you're tired of watching your money disappear faster than your paycheck actually hits your bank account, then this video is for you. And so in today's video, I'm going to share the 11 smart ways that you can save thousands of dollars every single year without having to stress. And if you're new here, my name is Nana. I hold a master's degree in business finance. And on this channel, we discuss everything personal finance and personal development. And so without further ado, we come to the first thing that you need to do when saving, and that is to know why you're saving. So anytime that you sit down to write a goal for yourself when it comes to how you're going to use your money, it actually helps or serves as a guideline as to the things that you can do and what you cannot do. And that also gives you a roadmap as to what can actually be done in order to cut down on unnecessary expenses and then try as much as possible to manage your money effectively and efficiently in order to hit those goals. Because it is widely said and believed that when a man knows not where he sails, no wind at all is favorable to him or her. And so try as much as possible to sit down and then write down the goal. Is it to save in order to get a minimum deposit for a house, or to buy a car, or to actually fund your kids' college tuition? Try as much as possible and then name every single thing that you want to do without saving. Don't just save simply because you feel like saving, or actually setting some funds aside in order for any emergency or anything. And so you need to try and then define or to identify the rationale behind why you're setting aside funds at the end of the month. And so what you can easily do is to know and to convince yourself that 1/10 of everything that you earn is yours to keep. So at least 10% of every single thing that comes in at the end of the month is something that you should earmark specifically for saving, and then try as much as possible to apportion that purpose, and that would help you and then ensure the right motivation to consistently stick to that goal of having to save every single month. This brings us to the second thing that you can do in order to save that 10 grand every single year, and that is to make sure that you break that big goal into tiny actionable steps. So anytime that you mention that lump sum of 10 grand every single year, people actually go haywire because they are really shocked. How can I actually find extra 10 grand to save every single year, knowing that I'm probably living paycheck to paycheck? Because according to research, about 60% of people living in the US are living paycheck to paycheck. In the UK, about 1/3 of all the workers or the working population in the UK are actually living paycheck to paycheck. And so it is very difficult. And I know how it sounds when someone comes out to say that, oh, you can save X amount of money. However, in this video, I'll actually be breaking down things that you can actually do effortlessly to save that much. But what you have to do secondly is to break that big goal down into tiny actionable steps. So if you really want to save 10 grand, then that might actually amount to around about $833 every single month, and that actually boils down to about $27 every single day. And when you break the goal down like this, it becomes less and less fearful, because it's easier for you to know that, oh, if I'm able to set anywhere between, £30 every single day or $30 every single day, that would ensure that at the end of the year, I would actually have in excess of that 10 grand that I really want to save. This brings us to the third thing that you can actually do in order to save that 10 grand every year, and that is to try as much as possible to increase your income by way of actually taking on some side hustles. So there is a limit to how much you can actually cut down when it comes to your expenses. However, there is no cap or there is no limit when it comes to how much you can actually earn. So try as much as possible and then sit down, ask yourself, and then go through your life. There is always going to be that experience or that skill that can actually be monetized. It can actually even be in the form of content creation, where you share your idea or generally an advice on things that you've been through in life. People can subscribe, and then you can actually gain or generate some level of affiliate links, which will lead people to products that you can recommend, and then based on that, you can get a cut off every single purchase that they make on platforms like Amazon, or even you can actually earn from YouTube by way of sharing your experiences. People might subscribe to your channel as a result of the value that you deliver to them, and these are some of the ways that you can actually go on to increase your income. So try as much as possible, and then the best person that can assess your life and determine what side hustle will be best for you is you. And so try as much as possible, sit down and then go through your life, assess all the skills and the abilities, the competencies that you have, and this is the right time for you to make that choice. This brings us to the fourth way that you can actually save more, and that is to avoid ordering out. So according to research, the average household in the US spends around about $3,000 every single year on eating out. And I'm not saying at this point that you've got to just cut down, because sometimes it makes sense for you to order out because of stress, or you don't have time to cook and all of those things. It makes sense, or there might be an occasion that warrants you actually spending out or eating out. But these things are things that are likely just actually taking a huge chunk of your income. So if that is something that you consistently do, probably on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, you might want to watch that budget, because that is also one avenue that you can cut down and save a lot from. This brings us to the fifth and the easiest way that you can actually save 10 grand, and that is to sell unwanted or unused items in the house. So if you're to do a life audit or to go through your closet or check around the house, there's always going to be gadgets, trainers, clothes that you really don't use or that are not delivering any value to you as it stands now. And this is the time for you to do away with these things, because that is one of the easiest ways for you to actually earn more, because it's not easy to just monetize your skills over a shortest possible time. However, listing things on Facebook Marketplace, on eBay, or even on Amazon would actually be sold out within a couple of days or probably even hours, and then that would ensure that you have enough coming in and more to save at the end of the month. This brings us to the sixth strategy that you can actually adopt in order to save 10 grand a year, and that is to avoid food waste. According to research, the average household in the US wastes anywhere between $1,400 and then $1,500 every single year on food waste. And these are things that are highly avoidable, in that you can plan your meals and you can even install apps that can help you to subsequently avoid food waste altogether. What you can equally do is that you have to stop buying perishable goods or groceries in bulk, because these things might not actually be consumed within time, and that also adds on to the waste bill that you might actually want to save in order to steer yourself towards the attainment of having to save 10 grand at the end of the year. This brings us to the seventh strategy that can help you to save 10 grand a year, and that is live below your means and then try and avoid impulse purchases. One of the key things that you need to know is that the ultra rich spend on one thing, and that is assets, things that are likely going to bring some form of income in the future, as opposed to liabilities, which are things that are going to take money out of your pocket. If you're able to discern between which of these two things you're really going to prioritize, and that will actually save you several years of financial stress, because most people out there are actually dragged into making several emotional purchases or spending on things that they might not necessarily even need, and that also puts some level of burden or financial stress on their income altogether and plunges them further down the poverty line. And that is something that you might want to avoid in order to actually become financially free in the future. This brings us to the eighth strategy that you might want to adopt in order to save 10 grand a year, and that is to resort to the rule of 3 quotes. So simply, anytime that you're going to purchase something, try as much as possible and then delay that purchase. But more often than not, try and then get 3 quotes from 3 different companies or 3 different sources, and that would actually ensure that you're actually getting the best value for your money, in that you're spending effectively and efficiently. So try as much as possible and then tame any emotional urge to purchase or to get things within the shortest possible time. And then as opposed to that, try and then get the best value with the little that you're spending on there. And that is one of the hallmark of the ultra rich that was highlighted in The Millionaire Next Door, written by Thomas Stanley and then William Danko. This brings us to the ninth strategy that can help you to save more, and that is to unplug items or appliances when not in use and try to put them off on the wall and not just on standby mode. Because according to energy experts, anytime that you put an appliance on standby mode, it still drains electricity or any energy that is running on, and that is one of the things that actually eat into your budget unknowingly. And that is what you might want to do, because simply if you're able to save the tiniest amount of money, that would actually add up over time and then ensure that you're still better off financially than you were before. This brings us to the 10th thing that you can do to save more, and that is to automate your savings. Now, human beings are emotional beings, like I always say, and so more often than not, we make emotional decisions, and then subsequently, we find logical reasons to back those emotional decisions. And so one of the key things that you can do if you truly want to become successful financially is to take out that human nature or take out that emotional decision bit of every single thing that you have to do, and that would ensure that you're actually staying disciplined, but more importantly, consistent with your financial goals. And so automating your savings would ensure that you still save, whether you're happy, whether you're sad, whether, irrespective of whatever you're going through in life, you're still going to stick to that financial goal. For instance, in my case, every Friday, money goes out of my account and it goes straight into my portfolio. Whether I'm happy or whether I've eaten or, I'm alive, or irrespective of whatever is happening in my life, the money still goes out of the account into that portfolio. And that ensures some level of consistency and helps me to take advantage of the compound interest effect on the stock market and to eradicate, the whole idea of, today I don't want to save and I don't want to invest and all of those kind of stuff. That human nature must be taken out, and that will subsequently make you better off financially. This brings us to the 11th and the last strategy that can help you to save 10 grand easily, and that is to invest in high yield savings account. So as opposed to the traditional banks that promise anywhere between 1 and 3% on your deposit, now high yield savings account promise anywhere between 4 and 5%, and that is simply because it cushions you against the concept of inflation. And inflation, for the avoidance of doubt, is the rate at which price of goods and services in an economy rise over time. And I have a whole video on how you can choose and then invest in the best highs as possible, which I'll link down in the description for your consideration after this video. And so thank you for spending time with us, and see you in the next video.